This is the morning of the 10th and last day of the June 94 10-day retreat in Springwater. And we will, as we usually do on the last day, read the writings by religious teachers and poets. From end to retreat, I forget to look for new material. Here's the morning. And I pick up what seems to be the old. Here and there, find in a half an hour before this starts something quote-unquote new. But so far I have not had complaints from people. About hearing again and again a lot of the same material. Because maybe we're discovering in this very process that new listening, fresh listening, always reveals something new. A few selections from Wang Po, who lived about 1,000 years ago. He was a Chinese Zen teacher, and his talks and dialogues were written down by his disciple, Pei Su. Recently someone who comes to retreat sent me a copy of an article, appeared in a scholarly Buddhist journal, that Wang Po wasn't really Wang Po. It wasn't what Wang Po said, and I don't recall all I read, but somehow it didn't seem to make so much difference. Who wrote what? Somebody added or deleted, he did a good job. I incidentally do some deleting too. I'm not presenting Wang Po, but excerpts which seem to fit into what we're talking about here and looking at together. When Wang Po uses the word Buddha, it does not just refer to the historical Gautama Buddha, but to the Sanskrit meaning of the word Buddha, which means an enlightened being. The Master said to me, all the Buddhas and all sentient beings are nothing but the one mind, both of them here capitalized. Nothing but the one mind, beside which nothing exists. This mind, which is without beginning, is unborn and indestructible. It is not green nor yellow and has neither form nor appearance. It does not belong to the categories of things which exist or do not exist, nor can it be thought of in terms of young or old, new or old. It is neither long nor short, big nor small, for it transcends all limits, measures, names, traces, and comparisons. It is that which you see before you. Begin to reason about it, and you at once fall into error. It is like the boundless void, which cannot be fathomed or measured. The one mind alone is Buddha, and there is no distinction between the Buddha and sentient beings, but that sentient beings are attached to forms and so seek externally for Buddhahood. By their very seeking, they lose it. For that is using the Buddha to seek for the Buddha, or using mind to grasp mind. Even though they do their utmost for a full eon, they will not be able to attain to it. They do not know that if they put a stop to conceptual thought and forget their anxiety, it will appear before them. For this mind is the Buddha, and Buddha is all living things. It is not less for being manifested in ordinary beings, nor is it greater for being manifested in the Buddhas. Mind is like the void in which there is no confusion or evil. We have not used the word void, I believe, maybe I have. Sometimes I say emptiness or openness, space without boundaries. Insubstantial. Mind is like the void in which there is no confusion or evil, as when the sun wheels through it, shining upon the four corners of the world. For when the sun rises and illuminates the whole earth, the void gains not in brilliance. And when the sun sets, the void does not darken. The phenomena of light and dark alternate with each other, but the nature of the void remains unchanged. Our original nature is in highest truth devoid of any atom of objectivity. It is void, omnipresent, silent, pure. It is glorious and mysterious, peaceful joy. And that is all. Enter deeply into it by awakening to it yourself. That which is before you is it. You can also say inside you, or that which is you is it. In all its fullness, utterly complete. There is naught beside it. Even if you go through all the stages of progress, one by one, when at last in a single flash you attain realization, you will only be realizing that which has been with you all the time. And by all the foregoing stages, you will have added nothing at all. You will come to look upon those eons of work and achievement as no better than unreal actions performed in a dream. Questioner asks, from all you have said, mind is the Buddha, or is truth. But it is not clear as to what sort of mind is meant by this mind which is the Buddha. Wangpo, how many minds have you got? Questioner, but is Buddha the ordinary mind or the enlightened mind? Wangpo, where on earth do you keep your ordinary mind and your enlightened mind? Pesu, in the teachings of the three vehicles, which is Buddhist scriptures, it is stated that they are both. Why does your reverence deny it? Wangpo, in the teaching of the three vehicles, it is clearly explained that both the ordinary and enlightened minds are illusions. You don't understand. All this clinging to the idea of things existing is to mistake vacuity for the truth. How can such conceptions not be illusory? Being illusory, they hide mind from you, or the truth, or being. Here-ness, now-ness, suchness, all words. If you would only rid yourselves of the concepts of ordinary and enlightened, you would find that there is no other Buddha than the Buddha in your own mind. You people go on misunderstanding. You hold to concepts such as ordinary and enlightened, directing your thoughts outwards where they gallop about like horses. All this amounts to beclouding your own minds. As soon as thought and sensation arises, you fall into dualism. Don't have to if you see it. If it's seen out of non-duality, then that is not disturbed. Beginningless time, Huang Po says, and present moment are the same. Beginningless time and the present moment are the same. Can we hear that? Don't have to understand it. Let's just let it sink in. Like rain into the parched ground. Beginningless time and the present moment are the same. There is no this and no that. To understand this truth is called complete and unexcelled enlightenment. Pisu, upon what doctrine does your reverence base these words? Huang Po, why seek a doctrine? As soon as you have a doctrine, you fall into dualistic thought. Questioner, just now you said that the beginningless past and the present are the same. What do you mean by that? Huang Po, it is just because of your seeking that you make a difference between them. If you were to stop seeking, how could there be any difference between them? How would we divide up the time if there was no thinking about yesterday, that I suffered, today that I seek, and tomorrow that I shall find? Questioner. If they are not different, why did you employ separate terms for them? Huang Po, if you hadn't mentioned ordinary and enlightened, who would have bothered to say such things? Just as those categories have no real existence, so mind with a capital M is not really mind. And as both mind and those categories are really illusions, where can you hope to find anything? Though others may talk of the way of the Buddhas as something to be reached by various pious practices and scripture study, you must have nothing to do with such ideas. A perception, sudden as blinking, that subject and object are one, will lead to a deeply mysterious, wordless understanding, and by this understanding you awake to the truth. Your true nature is something never lost to you even in moments of delusion, nor is it gained at the moment of enlightenment. It depends on nothing and is attached to nothing. It is all-pervading, spotless beauty. It is the self-existent and uncreated absolute. Absolute meaning no dependence, not dependent. Ah, it is a jewel beyond all price. One excerpt from Krishnamurti's teaching compiled by the annual gathering of the Krishnamurti Foundation in India in 1990. This comes from a talk given in Bombay in 1955. Question: what is this self-knowledge of which you speak? And how can I acquire it? Krishnamurti, there's also a few omissions. It is very simple, sir. The first step is the last step in self-knowledge. The beginning is the end. The first step is what matters, because self-knowledge is not something you can learn from others. No one can teach you self-knowledge. You have to find out for yourself. It must be your own discovery, and that discovery is not something tremendous, fantastic. It is very simple. After all, to know yourself is to watch your behavior, your words, what you do in your everyday relationships. That is all. Begin with that, and you will see how extraordinarily difficult it is to be aware. Just to watch the manner of your behavior, the words you use to your servants, to your boss, the attitude you have with regard to people, to ideas, to things. Just watch your thoughts, your motives in the mirror of relationship. And you will see that the moment you watch, you want to correct. You say, this is good and that is bad. I must do this and not that. When you see yourself in the mirror of relationship, your approach is one of condemnation or justification. Therefore, you distort what you see. Whereas, if you simply observe in that mirror your attitude with regard to people, to ideas, and to things, if you just see the fact without judgment, without condemnation or acceptance, then you will find that that very perception has its own action. That is the beginning of self-knowledge. To watch yourself, to observe what you do, what you think, what your motives and incentives are, and yet not to condemn or justify, is an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. Because your whole culture is based on condemnation, judgment, and evaluation. You have been brought up to do this and not that. But if you can look in the mirror of relationship without creating the opposite, meaning, shouldn't be this, I should be the opposite, then you will find that there is no end to self-knowledge. You see, the inquiry into self-knowledge is an outward movement which later turns inward. First we look at the stars, and then we look within ourselves. It can also both happen simultaneously. In the same way, we look for reality, for God, for security, for happiness in the objective world. And when it is not found there, we turn inward. This search for the inner God, the higher self, or what you will, completely ceases through self-knowledge. And then the mind becomes very quiet, not through discipline, but just through understanding, through watching, through being aware of itself every minute without choice. Don't say, I must be aware every minute, because it's just another manifestation of our foolishness. When we want to get somewhere, when we want to arrive at a particular state. What matters is to be aware of yourself and to keep on being aware without accumulating. Because the moment you accumulate, then from that center you judge. Self-knowledge is not a process of accumulation. It is a process of discovery from moment to moment in relationship. Some excerpts from Being and Becoming by Vimala Thakur, an Indian teacher residing in northern India. It's These are transcribed talks given in Dalhousie, 1989. We are talking about an alternative way of living, which is a meditative way of living. Acquire knowledge, let it flow through you, let it be utilized in its relevant field without creating or without thought creating a knower. If we look at the roots of all human misery, we will find that misery is built upon our stupidity. We do not know how to relate to the structures and use them without identification, without creating a sense of authority out of them. Structures are not sacred. It is only life that is sacred. Patterns have no sacredness, whether you create them in the name of religion, spirituality, or politics. It is the pattern-free, structure-free, virgin dynamism of life that is sacred, that is divine. Wherever you have touched it with thought, you have manipulated it. You have structured it. It has a utility but no sanctity. It has a utility but no authority. An alternative way of living is feeding the brain and the system with all the knowledge, the techniques, acquiring all that, using it without getting identified with it. It is only identification with the knowledge that creates the illusion of a knower. It is the creation of a knower that builds up your bondage. Knowledge itself has no power to bind you. It is the creation of the knower that is the obstacle. You have a beautiful, sensitive body, and the sensitivity gets into touch with its respective objects outside, and they bring sensations. Sensations are converted to electric impulses, and the brain interprets them. It is a marvelous process of what you call experiencing. Contact with the outside world through the senses, which are very delicate, very tender. It is quite hard and arduous work to keep your sensual system pure, healthy, supple, and elastic. Let the experiences flow through the sensual system. Nothing wrong in a sensual sexual experience, but you create, or thought creates, an experiencer, and you get stuck in the experience and its likes and dislikes, its value structures, its preferences, its prejudices, its theories. The word meditation has been identified with psychophysical exercises, concentrations, methods, techniques, kundalini, shakti paths. The word has been abused and misused in such a callous way. No authority and no effort. Freedom from authority and freedom from the struggle of efforts. Once you know that these human-made enclosures are only to be lived in, then the sense of comparing yourself with others, he has a palace and I have a hut, he has millions and I only have thousands. The sense of comparison and the ambition for competition disappears completely. Your economic life becomes simple. No vanity, no pride about your scholarship, erudition, and so forth. Your social life becomes simple. You do not move around with a begging bowl for sympathy, acceptance, prestige, acknowledgement, etc. Reconciled to the limitations, to the enclosures, you live and move in it. Can you see with me that effortlessness is the content of silence? Effortlessness is the content of silence. Silence is not just sitting still, it is a way of living. Silence is inner, unconditional freedom from the authority of the past. Silence is unconditional freedom from effort and therefore the alternative way of living. That is, meditation has no repetition at all. It is moment to moment. In the moment of relating, you are living. In the moment of aloneness, you are dying. It is living and dying, like inhaling and exhaling. To be alone is to die to the sense of being somebody or being something. Is not that the content of death and dying? To be alone is to die to the sense of being somebody. Sinner, saint, holy, knowledgeable, respected, rich, poor, and so forth. To be alone is to die to being something according to the definition of society, according to the value structure of religions. Physically isolating yourself may not lead you to the aloneness. It may or it may not. That is what we're afraid of, dying to the sense of being somebody, dying to all the images that you have built up about yourself is being alone. The way we are tackling the theme may be unusual, unheard of to many. It is a non-conventional way, a non-traditional approach. But I'm really grateful that life brings you and me together. A selection from I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. He died a few years before or after Krishnamurti. They got to be the same age about, died a little younger. This is selection number 2 and it's called Obsession with the Body. Questioner. Maharaj, you're sitting in front of me and I am here at your feet. What is the basic difference between us? Nisargadatta, there's no basic difference. Questioner, still there must be some real difference. I come to you, you do not come to me. Nisargadatta, because you imagine differences, you go here and there in search of superior people. Questioner, you too are a superior person. You claim to know the real while I do not. Nisargadatta, did I ever tell you that you do not know and therefore you are inferior? Let those who invented such distinctions prove them. I do not claim to know what you do not. In fact, I know much less than you do. Questioner, your words are wise, your behavior noble, your grace all-powerful. Nisargadatta, I know nothing about it all and see no difference between you and me. My life is a succession of events just like yours. Only I am detached and see the passing show as a passing show, while you stick to things and move along with them. Questioner, What made you so dispassionate? Nisargadatta, nothing in particular. It so happened that I trusted my guru. He told me I am nothing but myself, and I believed him. Trusting him, I behaved accordingly and ceased caring for what was not me nor mine. Questioner, why were you so lucky to trust your teacher fully, while our trust is nominal and verbal? Nisargadatta, who can say? It happened so. Things happen without cause and reason. And after all, what does it matter who is who? Your high opinion of me is your opinion only. Any moment you may change it. Why attach importance to opinions, even your own? Questioner, still you are different. Your mind seems to be always quiet and happy, and miracles happen around you. Nisargadatta, I know nothing about miracles, and I wonder whether nature admits exceptions to her laws, unless we agree that everything is a miracle. As to my mind, there is no such thing. There is consciousness in which everything happens. It is quite obvious and with the experience of everybody. You just do not look carefully enough. Look well and see what I see. Questioner, what do you see? Nisargadatta, I see what you too could see here and now, but for the wrong focus of your attention. You give no attention to yourself. Your mind is all with things, with people, and with ideas, never with yourself. Bring yourself into focus. Become aware of your own existence. See how you function. Watch the motives and the results of your actions. Study the prison you have built around yourself by inadvertence. Doesn't say by your own fault. He says by inadvertence. By knowing what you are not, you come to know yourself. The way back to yourself is through refusal and rejection. Meaning it's not this, but this, not this happens in seeing, not in ideation. Not a refusal of idea, led by an idea that I should reject myself. One thing is certain, the real is not imaginary. It is not a product of the mind. Even the sense I am is not continuous, though it is a useful pointer. That's his practice that he gives his disciples. Stick with the I am. Find out what that is. That's his practice. Even the sense I am is not continuous, though it is a useful pointer. It shows where to seek, but not what to seek. Just have a good look at it. Once you're convinced that you cannot say truthfully about yourself anything except I am, and that nothing that can be pointed at can be yourself, you're no longer intent on verbalizing what you are. All you need is to get rid of the tendency to define yourself. All definitions apply to your body only and to its expressions. Once this obsession with the body goes, you will revert to your natural state, spontaneously and effortlessly. The only difference between us is that I'm aware of my natural state while you are bemused. Just like gold made into ornaments has no advantage over gold dust, except when the mind makes it so, so we are one in being. We differ only in appearance. We discover it by being earnest, by searching, inquiring, questioning daily and hourly, by giving one's life to this discovery. Now we come to the poets. One Robe, One Bowl by the Zen poetry of Ryokan, who lived sometime. Here I find, in 1777 he shaved his head. Well, that is enough. These are the summer poems. This is nice about this book. You have winter poems, spring poems, summer poems, and fall poems. So you don't always have to hear the same, unless you only come in the summertime. Grass War. Once again the children and I are fighting a battle using spring grasses. Now advancing, now retreating, each time with more refinement. Twilight, everyone has returned home. The bright, round moon helps me endure the loneliness. Listening to the evening rain in my hermitage, the great way. I braid spring flowers into a ball. The future? If a visitor brings these questions, I have only the tranquility of the hermitage to offer. Late at night, the faint sound of someone pounding rice. Dew drips from the bamboo onto the firewood pile, and the plants along the garden are also moist. Frogs croak in the distance, but then seem very close. Fireflies light low, then high. Wide awake, sleep is far off. Smoothing out the pillow, I let my thoughts drift. An evening dream. Everything must have been an illusion. I cannot explain clearly even one part of what I saw. Yet in the dream, it seemed as if the truth were in front of my eyes. This morning, awake, is it not the same dream? Peach blossoms cover both sides of the river bank like mist. In spring, the deep blue river appears to be the stream of heaven. Wandering here and there, gazing at the peach blossoms as I follow the flow of the river. What is this? An old friend's house. A thief has stolen my pillow and mat. Why did he break into my hermitage? The door is never locked. The night is ending and I sit alone by the window. A sparse rain falls gently against the bamboo grove. In the distance, frogs croak in the mountain rice fields, the evening's single song. The rainy season is over, it's now clear. I go out, green fields and cool breezes everywhere. Unable to sleep, I hear the voice of a young deer rising from a mountain ridge. The branches that will be used for this autumn's firewood are still blooming. Please gather some summer grasses wet with dew and come visit me. I stretch out for a nap in my little hut. In the fields, frogs chant their songs, and the birds in the bamboo grove sing along. In the pond near my hut, the lotus flowers, covered with dew, bloom in a row. Lying on my grass pillow, dreaming about this dream world again, lonely, fitful sleep. As I watch the children happily playing, without realizing it, my eyes fill with tears. Thinking about the people in this floating world far into the night, my sleeve is wet with tears. The thief left it behind, the moon at the window. A very brief passage from a letter written by Rilke from the book Letters to a Young Poet. This is dated August 1904. Letter comes from Sweden. You have had many great sadnesses which passed. And you say that even this passing was hard for you and put you out of sorts. But please, consider whether these great sadnesses have not rather gone right through the center of yourself. Whether much in you has not altered, whether you have not somewhere at some point of your being undergone a change while you were sad. Only those sadnesses are dangerous and bad which one carries about among people in order to drown them out. Like sicknesses that are superficially and foolishly treated, they simply withdraw and, after a little pause, break out again the more dreadfully and accumulate within one and are unlived, spurned, lost life of which one may die. Were it possible for us to see further than our knowledge reaches, and yet a little way beyond the outworks of our divining, perhaps we would endure our sadnesses with greater confidence than our joys. For they are the moments when something new enters into us, something unknown. Our feelings grow mute and shy perplexity. Everything in us withdraws. A stillness comes, and the new, which no one knows, stands in the midst of it and is silent. Some poems by Mary Oliver, contemporary poet. This is called New and Selected Poems. When death comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me, and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles-pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arm. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Hawk. This morning, the hawk rose up out of the meadow's brows and swung over the lake. It settled on the small black dome of a dead pine, alert as an admiral, its profile distinguished with sideburns the color of smoke. And I said, I remember, this is not something of the red fire. This is heaven's fistful of death and destruction. And the hawk hooked one exquisite foot into the last twig to look deeper into the yellow reeds along the edges of the water. And I said, remember the tree, the cave, the white lily of resurrection? And that's when it simply lifted its golden feet and floated into the wind belly first, and then it cruised along the lake. All the time its eyes fastened harder than love on some unimportant rustling in the yellow reeds. And then it seemed to crouch high in the air, and then it turned into a white blade which fell. The sun. Have you ever seen anything in your life more wonderful than the way of the sun? Every evening, relaxed and easy, floats toward the horizon and into the clouds or the hills or the rumpled sea, and is gone. And how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world, like a red flower streaming upward on its heavenly oils. Say, on a morning in early summer, at its perfect imperial distance. And have you ever felt for anything such wild love? Do you think there's anywhere in any language a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you as the sun reaches out as it warms you, as you stand there empty-handed? Or have you too turned from this world? Or have you too gone crazy for power, for things? Indonesia. On the curving, dusty roads we drove through the plantations where the pickers balanced on the hot hillsides. Then we climbed toward the green trees, toward the white scarves of clouds, to the inn that is never closed in this island of fairest weather. The sun hung like a stone, time dripped away like a streaming river, and from somewhere a dry tongue lashed out its single motto, now and forever. And the pickers balanced on the hot hillsides like gray and blue blossoms, wrapped in their heavy layers of clothes against the whips of the branches, in that world of leaves. No poor man with a brown face and an empty sack has ever picked his way out of. At the inn we stepped from the car to the garden, where tea was brought to us scalding in white cups from the fire. Don't ask if it was the fire of honey or the fire of death. Don't ask if we were determined to live at last with merciful hearts. We sat among the unforgettable flowers. We let the white cups cool before we raised them to our lips. Entering the kingdom. The crows see me. They stretch their glossy necks in the tallest branches of green trees. I'm possibly dangerous. I am entering their kingdom. The dream of my life is to lie down by a slow river and stare at the light in the trees. To learn something by being nothing. A little while. No, to learn something by being nothing a little while, but the rich lens of attention. But the crows puff their feathers and cry between me and the sun, and I should go now. They know me for what I am. No dreamer, no eater of leaves. The summer day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings wide open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, What else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? University Hospital, Boston. The trees on the hospital lawn are lush and thriving. They too are getting the best of care like you and the anonymous many in the clean rooms high above the city, where day and night the doctors keep arriving, where intricate machines chart with cool devotion the murmur of the blood, the slow patching up of bone, the despair of the mind. When I come to visit, and we walk out into the light of a summer day, we sit under the trees, buckeyes, a sycamore, and one black walnut brooding high over a hedge of lilacs as old as the red brick building behind them, the original hospital built before the Civil War. We sit on the lawn together holding hands while you tell me you are better. How many young men, I wonder, came here, wheeled on carts off the slow trains from the red and hideous battlefields, to lie all summer in the small and stuffy chambers, while doctors did what they could, longing for tools still unimagined, medicines still unfound, wisdoms still unguessed at. And how many died staring at the leaves of the trees, blind to the terrible effort around them to keep them alive. I look into your eyes, which are sometimes green and sometimes gray, and sometimes full of humor, but often not, and tell myself you are better, because my life without you would be a place of parched and broken trees. Later, walking the corridors down to the street, I turn and step inside an empty room. Yesterday, someone was here with a gasping face. Now the bed is made all new. The machines have been rolled away. The silence continues, deep and neutral, as I stand there, loving you. We will end here for today.